Welcome to another Empires and Puzzles book video. Today I want to talk about using harpoons, as I'm concerned that a lot of alliances are potentially wasting huge amount of harpoons and resources for very little return. Harpoons are a weapon that can be made in the Hunter's Lodge and can be very helpful in fighting Titans. When fired, the harpoon gives 750 damage, which is not that much against the Titan, but every bit helps. The Harpoon also gives the Titan negative 20% attack for 6 turns, which can be valuable if your team takes a lot of damage from Titans. The real power in the Harpoon comes firing it when the Titan is stunned. Doing this will increase the attack down of the Titan to negative 25%, but more importantly, it also gives the Titan negative 30% defense down for 6 turns. That can be huge, especially if you do not have a defense down hero. Another benefit of harpoons is that if your alliance uses enough harpoons, the Titan will drop Titan parts in the loot. These are hard to find items that can only be attained from using harpoons against Titans. Titan parts drop on 3 tier levels of harpoon usage. That brings me to the concern for today's conversation. So let me be clear, unless the alliance is relying on the effects of the harpoon to be able to kill the Titan, it does not make sense, at least not economic sense, to go beyond the first tier of the harpoon usage. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So again, unless you absolutely need the effects from the harpoon and that's what you're using to help kill your Titans, going past that first tier is probably wasting a lot of resources. Let me explain. For this to make sense, we need to consider the cost of making a harpoon. Harpoons cost 1 common herb, which is not hard to come by, 1 clean cloth, which is not hard to come by, but 1 large bone. These items are not hard to come by overall, but the large bones we also need for making small mana pots. So unless you're farming on a very intense level like I do, you most likely do not have 16,000 large bones in your inventory. So you need to decide if those bones are going towards small mana pots or if they're going towards harpoon. The real big expense with making harpoon is 60,000 hams and over 94,000 iron that are needed. Let's see how these numbers play out. My alliance kills 14 star Titans every single day. We typically use harpoons only to the first tier, as that's the most efficient, as will be demonstrated in this video. When we kill a Titan, we most often get 7 to 8 Titan parts. Randomly, sometimes we'll get 9 or 10, but most days we can count on 7 to 8 parts. I'm not sure if that's the same for smaller Titans, but for the sake of this discussion, I'm going to assume that it is. In fact, if it is less for smaller Titans, it's going to make this math even worse. So here is an image I recently seen posted from an alliance that was doing some recruiting. They have thus far on this Titan used 45 harpoons and are probably going to complete all 3 tiers. I'm going to use this as an example as to why using this many harpoons is not efficient with resources and potentially very wasteful. The only reason to use this many harpoons is if the alliance really needs the weapon power to take down the Titan. So let's use my math, assuming that they're receiving 7 Titan parts for the first tier. With this alliance, they would be getting 7 parts for 7 harpoons. If this alliance has 10 members, which I believe they do, that would be 70 parts total for 7 harpoons. That cost comes out to 440,000 hams and 662,000 iron, which comes out to about 6,000 hams per part and about 9,500 iron per part. But what about the next tier? Are players aware that getting to the second tier only nets 2 more Titan parts? That brings this alliance up to a total of 9 parts. So for 10 members, that's a total of 90 parts. But at what cost? It'll take an additional 11 harpoons to get just 2 more parts. The investment is now 1.1 million hams and 1.7 million iron. The cost in ham per Titan part jumps from 6,000 hams per part up to over 12,000. It more than doubles. The iron jumped from 9,500 to 19,000, so that doubled too. Guess what? The math doesn't get better when we look at the third tier. Completing the third tier will get this alliance 14 total Titan parts per player, as you get 5 extra when you get to the third tier. Now this again is assuming they get the same amount of Titan parts as we do on a 14 star. If it's less, this gets even worse for them. So the alliance in question has now used 52 Harpoons. 52! That is over 3.2 million hams and nearly 5 million iron. They would receive a combined total of 140 Titan parts. But the cost in food and iron per part jumps to 23,000 food per part compared to the first tier that was about 6,000 per part, and the iron is 35,000 iron per Titan part received. That is huge compared to the 9,500 at the first tier. This is an enormous jump in cost. This same alliance, using those same 52 Harpoons and only going to the first tier, could have killed 7.4 Titans and received over 518 Titan parts for the same amount of investment into those Harpoons. Now, for that amount of food and iron invested in Harpoons, would your alliance prefer to get 518 parts or 140? The costs of Harpoons above the first tier makes no economic sense unless, again, your alliance needs the power of the Harpoons to actually kill the Titan. Far be it for me to judge that. If you're using the Harpoons as the weapon and you need to use that weapon and you happen to get up to the higher tiers, then congrats on getting some extra loot for that. But the cost benefit for doing it just for the Titan parts is not worthwhile. As we go up in Titans, Titan tier levels drastically increase. For our 14-star Titans, we would need 146 Harpoons to reach the third tier. That is almost 3 times as many as the example alliance I've been using. Can you imagine the food and iron costs to make 146 Harpoons? It's roughly 9 million ham and 14 million iron. Certainly there are better ways to use those resources. Lastly, a question I never really see players discuss. What is the motivation and use for all of these Titan parts? For me, I enjoy getting the Titan skulls just to make scrolls of alteration, which I use for my record-breaking Titan hits. But overall, I've not found much value in the rest of Titan parts. Have you? What Titan parts do you like to get, and what do you use to make them? Do these Titan parts justify the expense in getting them? Post your comments below, as I'm really interested in hearing how your alliance handles your Harpoons and what your group hopes to achieve from using them. What are you guys doing with all of these Titan parts?